time. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Google AppScript Office Hours for November 9th, 2012. My name is Ikai and
And I'm Eric Kalita.
And we've got a great Office Hours show for you today.
Just like every Office Hours.
Just every Office Hours we have is top-notch. So we've got a couple of interesting things to announce. First off, I'll start by announcing that we're actually starting to fill up for the Los Angeles hackathon. I think there's not that many spaces left. So if you get a chance and you're in the Los Angeles area, do come check us out. You can search for the hackathon site at Google AppScript Los Angeles Hackathon. It was actually easier to say that whole thing than to read out the URL, which is actually really long. So go ahead and sign up. Let us know if you're coming. We'd love to meet you and hear about what you're doing, and help you come up with ideas for trying to solve your workflow problems, and just automating things that you're doing with Google Apps.
Maybe for some people that haven't been at a Google Hackathon before, can you kind of run us through what happens?
Yeah, sure. See, I just assumed that everybody's been to a hackathon. So what we're going to do is we're hosted at the Google Los Angeles office across from Venice Beach. This is, get to the chopper.
Yeah.
So that's the worst Arnold impression ever. What we're going to do is we're going to lead you guys through a tutorial of how to do a sign-up sheet via Google Forms and Google Spreadsheets. We're going to talk about some of the things that people use AppScript for. We're going to try to organize you into teams, but we don't necessarily have a competition. We just want everyone to have a good time and learn some stuff about AppScript. Now, I'd say about half the people use the time to hack and try to build new products or new tools or new scripts, whereas the other half, what they do is they like to run tutorials. And it's a very good time to do tutorials as well, because we'll be there to help you if you run into any problems and answer any questions you may have. Now, obviously, what we want is for you to build products, and what people end up doing is they end up looking at tutorials and saying, well, I need to do something very, very similar to this. So first I'm going to do a tutorial, then I'm going to go ahead and adopt something. So I'm going to turn this into something that I would use every day. So what is this guy? What's happening over here? That goes on an outtakes video. We're making an outtakes video. It'll be good. Anyway, so a good example is someone came last time and he did our chart tutorial, and he merged it with his own invoices. He keeps invoices for his clients in Google Spreadsheets. So he wrote a script that goes through his Google Drive, looks for all the invoices, and charts how much money he's making. So it was kind of funny because he demoed it, and he demoed it with live data, and he showed us all the money he was making or wasn't making at certain times, and that was kind of funny.
It was very open of him.
It was, he's an open guy.
Yeah.
I liked him.
But it's great. But you get about maybe 5-6 hours of hacking in there. It kind of depends, I guess, on how late you stay in the night. But some time to hack. So it's it's hard to go all the way from idea to fully polished app. So using the tutorials or working in a team is a way to kind of speed up the process and get further and kind of explore more, rather than just going solo or something like that.
Right. It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, we love talking to people, and we will have food. I think last time we have pizza, and this time we will have pizza and also a healthier option, which is we will have Mediterranean food.
Ooh.
If things go to plan, but I can't guarantee that. I can't guarantee that we'll have that available. So it might change last minute depending on our needs. So
sign up now, I guess, right?
Yeah, sign up now. We still have a couple of spots. We got a lot of sign-ups the last few days, so it's going to be a really packed event. I'm really looking forward to this.
Killer.
So we've got a couple of other things we want to talk about today. So hold on real quick while I log into my laptop. So we're going to talk about the release notes. There's some good stuff's been pushed out. We've got 2 recent blog posts, and we just want to highlight. Eric's going to help us highlight these things. And we're going to go into talk about Google Cloud SQL a little bit. The Cloud SQL is a product that we have that allows you to create hosted SQL databases that you can use in your applications. And it launched. You could access it via Google App Engine, but now you'll be able to access your Google Cloud SQL via AppScript, which gives you yet another persistence option. So we'll talk a little bit about that before we head into live Q&A and discussion.
Sounds good.
Sounds good?
Yeah.
So why don't we start by talking, you want to do release notes first, or you want to do the recent blog post first?
Let's do blog posts.
Okay, let's do that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So this week we had our election, right? But the week prior, we
had an election. This is true.
We had an election, and the week prior, we put out some blog posts that were kind of election themed, kind of just in time for the season. So the first of which is that here on the AppScript developer relations team, we put together a sample app that kind of uses AppScript to build a web application that connects to the Google Civic Information API. This is an API that Google provided that allows you to query for a given address, where do I go vote? How late are they open? What's the address? Who are the candidates? So we use that API to build this kind of sample web application because we think that this kind of scope, right? Having a data source that's JSON-based, that's publicly accessible, and serving that in a web format that integrates with your Google properties is really kind of the strong point of Google AppScript. So this sample application created a calendar event for Election Day.
Right.
It's saved to drive information about where to go vote, or even send you an email for the details of where to go vote. So it was a really cool sample app that we had some Kalyan on our team and Arun put together, and I think it turned out pretty great.
Where are those guys now?
Where are they now?
Yeah, I mean,
well,
they're never here. Right? It just seems like I'm just kidding. Kalyan's helping us produce the show, and he's like giving me like the evil eye right now. And Arun is, I think he's at an event.
Yes.
Right at EduCause, I believe.
I think so. He'll probably report back next week.
Yeah. That would make sense.
Yeah.
So there's a second sample app as well. I remember using this application, and it's funny when you're working with applications that aren't fully developed yet. And they asked us this tester app, and I do it, and I'm like, how come it says my polling place is North Carolina? And they go, oh, we only have one polling place in the database right now. So I'm like, all right. Well, otherwise it works pretty well.
Test data.
Test data.
Yeah. So that was one blog post we did. And then we did a second one where we actually have another Googler named Chris Cartland.
So a funny story about Chris Cartland is that, I don't know, we always laugh about this. So in our employee directory, you can set the name you want to be called as. So he likes being known as Cartland. So inside the employee directory, it says his name is Cartland.
Yes.
So we were arguing about whether or not that was like his birth name.
No.
Yeah.
Chris Cartland.
Yes, his name is Chris Cartland.
Officially.
But he likes to be called Cartland.
Yeah. So Cartland put together this cool script actually back when he was in university for doing voting. So there are a lot of different types of voting in the world. The one that we use for elections here in the United States is kind of majority wins, right? But there are a lot of other more complex types. And the one that he wanted to use was this one called instant runoff voting. It's basically a system where instead of just selecting one person that you want to vote for, you kind of give an ordered list of who you'd like to vote for. And if the first person on your list isn't going to come close to winning, they kind of scratch it off and then go to your next choice. So it's kind of a way to bring in third parties or kind of make it so it's a different type of voting that can, in some cases, work out better. So he wanted to use that for, I think, a university club he was in. So he wrote an app script that basically uses Google Forms to collect the data, then put it into a spreadsheet, and then use AppScript to process all those results, do the voting calculation, and then come up with a winner. Obviously, doing a more complex voting scheme is harder when you're doing it by hand. So we published a blog post about that. That's pretty great. And he actually made that script available in the script gallery if you want to try it out yourself.
You made a video, too.
And a very nice video.
So you can take a look. You can look for these if you go to googleappsdeveloper.blogspot.com. Again, that's googleappsdeveloper.blogspot.com. Sometimes it's easier just to go into your favorite search engine and search for Google Apps Developer blog, and you'll find it. Now, notice that I don't plug Google there.
Yeah.
Because people might have different search engine. Like I have my own search engine. It's called Ikai Super Search Engine.
I gotta try that.
Yeah, it's in stealth right now. Also, the results are static. It's okay. It's a Python web app with a dictionary that directly maps your query string to a URL.
Sounds scalable.
Don't you have something? Don't you have somewhere to be? Just kidding. We have a lot of fun on this team, as you can tell. So why don't we go ahead and move into the release notes?
Yeah, well, man, did we have a lot of release notes recently.
Did we? I mean, did you cover the October 26th stuff?
Well, so the October 26th release kind of happened right around Sandy.
Oh, yeah.
So the hurricane kind of put that one on delay. Did not get out until early this week. I think on Monday is when I got it out there.
Hold on for a second. Let's. Why don't we share a screen real quick? Is this
your screen?
Oh. I just realized something. I didn't plug
it in.
We were just talking about this. That goes on a blooper reel. So why don't we just go ahead and do this without the screen sharing then? It'll probably still be just as effective. So November. Let's start October 26th. I was caught in the hurricane, as were you and Kalyan, although I think you had power.
I had power, I just did not have connection to the Google servers, so I couldn't log in and get this published out.
You had power but no laptop.
Yep.
I had a laptop but no power. So it's like together we would have formed like a useful person. But we did not do that. It's like Voltron.
Yeah, I was thinking Voltron in my head.
Voltron. Yeah. So on October 26th, we pushed out a release where we fixed a ton of bugs.
So many.
But there's two big things I want to talk about here, which are, one is that we pushed out a class Gmail attachment. So prior to this, one of the common use cases for AppScript was to write scripts that would go through your Gmail, look for, say, large attachments, and say, hey, do you want to delete this, right? It would at least list them on a spreadsheet, maybe email it to you, maybe you'd label it.
Yeah, so a lot of apps like that.
Yeah. The problem with this script, and I was writing one, is that you run into a quota very quickly. So there's a quota you hit that's really bad. And okay, well, our producer's pointing at me. And so we should really not, the fourth wall, right? Like
yeah,
you
gotta shield yourself.
I
there.
know. So I'm sorry about the interruption. So now it's much easier to write scripts that do that because there's a new API called getSize via the Gmail attachment. So call that instead of get attachments, I believe. So hopefully we can get out a sample that can show you guys how to write a script like this.
I think before people had to fetch all of the bytes and then measure the size of those bytes.
That is what I did.
Right. And so instead of fetching the bytes, which actually causes us to do a lot of extra work,
right,
we already have the total size stored somewhere, so we can just give you the size.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That was a very silly way of doing things. The more I thought about it, I was like, I am reading all the bytes of the attachment. I don't care what's in the attachment. Right.
Yeah. So that's a cool improvement.
Yeah.
But then there was another great Gmail improvement there too, right? The top one here on our release notes.
Get aliases.
Yeah. So this was actually one of our most highly rated feature requests. I think it had like in the hundreds of stars on it, which is how we measure how important an issue is. Which is the ability to figure out in Gmail. I don't know how many people have set it up. I have it set up for myself. In Gmail, you can send an email as a different address.
Yes.
There's like an authorization process where you have it sends you an email and you confirm it. But then after that point, there's a drop-down where you can say, OK, send this email address using this other address that I own. And that was never available in Gmail app until now. So with Gmail app.getAliases, you can figure out all of the aliases that you're approved to use. And then when you do .sendMail, you can pass in an extra from field that'll specify send as this address.
That's a very useful feature because you don't always want to be sending as yourself.
Yeah,
right? And sometimes,
especially within an organization,
right,
sometimes you're Gary, but you want to send it as a more official email address.
Yeah, sometimes I want to send emails as Eric.
Right, well, I'm not going to approve that one.
Dear JP Morgan Chase, please transfer. Lock your screen.
Yeah.
That's my warning to you.
It's dangerous to sit next to this guy.
So,
so those are two really great Gmail improvements that came out during that release. I think there was some other small stuff listed here.
That's right. We did the JavaScript execution performance stuff. I totally forgot about that one. So we have a lot of really great users that are always benchmarking and saying, hey, what's going on with this? And sometimes things are going to be slower, sometimes it's going to be faster. But when things are like 1,000 times slower, that's usually an indication that something's not working correctly. So we've addressed some JavaScript execution things. So if you're running things in a very tight loop, you'll see some improvements there. Now, granted, if you're making lots of API calls, it's not really going to have a big impact because of the cost of a round trip of the API call, which is why we've included batching in things such as spreadsheets, right, to make things speed up. Now, an analogy I like to use here is that sometimes, and you've seen me do this, where I'll just eat a whole pizza, and Eric, people have commented that, why are you eating a whole pizza and drinking a Diet Coke? And that's kind of what's happening here, is that if you increase your JavaScript execution performance, but you're still making tons of API calls, you're not going to get a lot of benefit there. So this is going to be really useful if you're doing lots of typed calculations, but not necessarily if you're making lots of API calls.
I never would have thought that actually would have made sense, that analogy, but it actually did, so
yeah,
good to go. So doing math, right, doing loops, those kind of things are going to be faster. I think we saw like 3 to 4x improvement, but if you're calling out to fetch data from a spreadsheet, that's not been touched.
Right. And what's the last one? The last improvement is we've made a really big improvement to how you can fetch files from Google Drive.
Yeah.
So previously, you can only fetch 2,000 items, which is kind of bad.
It sounds like a lot, but with Drive and the amount of storage you get for free, that can fill up pretty quick.
Yeah. So now there's a new way of doing this. So instead of saying get everything, what you want to do is you want to use this get files for paging, because what you get back is a page token. And every next iteration of the call, you want to pass the token to the method. And this is really useful because now you have a continuation, you can keep going.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so this allows you to do kind of activities people had wanted to do, like I want to back up my drive, I want to list everything in my drive, right? You couldn't do that before. You couldn't get more than 2,000. So now you can't get all those files in one go.
Right.
But at least now there's a way by page by page by page. You can work your way through all the files.
Right. And we've submitted a bunch of bug fixes. So if you could check those out by looking for AppScript release notes, it's on our site. Just click on release notes. And that's October 26th. November 6th, we also had a lot of really great updates. So we fixed a couple of issues. Oh, we updated icons. That's a big deal.
Icons.
Yeah. But more importantly, we made some cleanup changes. One is to lock service. We had a problem with UI service, where if you build a UI app but call lock service, it wouldn't always work correctly. In fact, I think it would work correctly some of the time, but not all the time.
It was sporadic.
Yeah, so we've addressed that. So now you should be able to use lock service to lock sections of your code, so you don't it's called a race condition, where if you make a change and Eric makes a change, you can lock something so he can't overwrite my change in the middle of my change. Now, that doesn't mean he can't come back later and just undo my change. Right. But at least you won't get things in a weird state, which is typically what you want to use something like lock service for. Like let's say you had to modify two things, right? You want to edit a doc and send an email, and you made sure you wanted those things to happen one after the other, and you didn't want anything else to interrupt. You can use lock service to get a lock and lock that so that only one script can execute that at any given time.
Yeah, if you're writing a script just for yourself, these problems don't come up. But with an organization or a script that maybe has even broader usage, you could get two people hitting the script at almost the exact same second, and that could cause problems. So the lock service is good. That's back in action.
We've also added a little bit of syntactical sugar, as we like to call it, to embedded chart builder. So when you're building an embedded chart for a spreadsheet, it's a little bit nicer. I mean, I was fine with the way before, but I'm sure there was a good reason for these.
Yeah, it's kind of like we have all of these strongly typed charts, like area chart, bar chart. Before, the embedded chart was kind of just an ambiguous chart with a collection of options. Now you can kind of cast it back into a chart that that you've used before, and then use some of the native methods that are there on that chart.
That's true. Although to be fair, there was no reason set chart type couldn't have done that either, right? Oh, actually, I think that you're right. It is better this way.
Yeah, you can get access to the native methods of that chart.
Right. So. Whereas with set chart type, you might not get autocomplete if you needed like a native method or something.
Yeah, it's just a little syntactic sugar there.
Good things. All right, so I think those are the big things. There's a few more issues that we've addressed. So if you want to see the full list of what went out these last few weeks, go to developers.google.com/apps-script and click on release notes, and you'll see everything that we've been doing.
That's great.
Okay. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. There was something else that went out that we didn't put in the release notes.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about right now, right?
Let's talk about it right
now. I'm referring to the Cloud SQL integration. Right?
I am referring to Cloud SQL integration.
So that was just announced yesterday. It wasn't on our blog, but the Cloud SQL blog included it there. Essentially, like as Ikai mentioned before, Cloud SQL is a Google-hosted MySQL database. And you're relying on Google infrastructure, and you don't have to worry about security. Connections are all secured via OAuth 2. So it's really quite a nice product. And while we had the ability to connect to SQL databases in the past in AppScript using the JDBC service, you couldn't connect to Cloud SQL. Because it had that extra OAuth layer, it just didn't work via the normal means. So we now have a separate method in JDBC, the JDBC class called getCloudSQLConnection. And what's great about this is that it uses the user's OAuth. You just have to click on I approve dialog, but then you don't need to worry about usernames and passwords if you don't want to.
Right.
There's still the option to pass in optional username and password to have like fine-grained controls configured within your MySQL database. But just to connect, all you need to do is have access to that Google Cloud SQL database in the APIs console, and then you're good to go.
Right, and Cloud SQL's got a lot of benefits when you want to use it with something like AppScript, right? Which is that prior to Cloud SQL, you might want to have a JDBC connection to your SQL database. Now, the problem is that you'd have to put it somewhere which is accessible via the open internet.
Right.
And of course, you'd secure it with a username and password, but still, it was kind of like, do I really want to do this? I don't know. Now, that's not to say that people who are doing it now aren't doing a great job, because
you just have to be aware of the risks.
Exactly. And with Cloud SQL, you can completely lock it down to just AppScript. So if you're interested in looking at this, search for Google Cloud SQL. You're going to need to enable the Cloud SQL service. And once you've enabled it, that's when you can go ahead and start writing AppScript. You do need to do this via the Google API console first. Like, it's not just going to work out of the box. You can't just expect to get Cloud SQL connection and have it work.
Right. Now, there is a caveat to the way that the Cloud SQL connection works today from AppScript, and that there's a limitation in that whoever is the effective user of your script, right? That's the user whose docs you're accessing or Gmail you're accessing, right? Whoever the script is running as, that user currently today needs to have access directly to the Cloud SQL database instance. That means having access to that API's console project. So if you have a script that's published that runs as you, the owner, right, and that maybe it's a web app, that's fine. You are the owner, it runs as you have access, we're good to go. The problem comes when you want to have a script that runs as the user, where let's say you publish a web app and you want to allow anybody in the world to kind of sign in, approve your script, and then run as them. That means that each individual person would need to have access to the database in order for this to work. And obviously, you don't know who these people are sometimes ahead of time, or even in an organization. It could be difficult to give all 1,000 people in your organization access. So that limitation today makes it so that it may not be appropriate for all use cases. So we talked a little bit more about this in our JDBC documentation. You can read about it there. But there's just a caveat up front that the way it exists today, it may not work for all scenarios. And we are looking at kind of improving this integration going forward so that we can really open it up to even more use cases.
Right. But there are definitely benefits to having a SQL database available. I mean, we have a lot of persistence options right now. We've got SQL, we've got Cloud SQL. So if you're going to go with the SQL family, definitely consider Cloud SQL as an option. On top of those two, we have ScriptDB, which is more of it's more similar to a document database. And I know that we want to talk more about that at some point in a future show. We also have user properties, which are good for storing a small amount of data, but it's very, very easy to use. And we have cache. Don't store any important data in the cache. Cannot stress this enough.
Goes away.
All the time.
It's cache.
And of course, we have spreadsheets, which have all the benefits of having a UI, functions, and all the things that spreadsheets can do. So thank you for that. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, no problem.
So why don't we go ahead? We've got a few minutes left, so let's move to some of the Q&A and some of the live participants. Let's see is anyone on air?
We have some guests.
We've got a couple of folks. Hey guys, I know it looks. John, is that you? Yep, yeah. I see him waving. This is John Kaufman from Washington, D.C. He's not shy. He just likes to participate in this show. But welcome. Let's see who else is there. I can't see who that is. There's a box blocking my view. But if you want to say hi, just jump in any time and say how you're doing. Otherwise, we're going to move into the Q&A. We've got only. Let me refresh this page. It looks like we've only one right now, which is. Let me take a look at it. Yep. Does a deep integration of AppScript into Google Docs, such as triggers, custom context menu, like with spreadsheets, is this on the roadmap? Well, we don't publish a roadmap, but this is something that we're thinking a lot about because we saw how popular it is to make this to expose this in spreadsheets, right? To expose especially the context menu. So we're definitely looking at different ways that we can do this, but this is something we're thinking a lot about. We have got nothing announced right now, and we don't have anything announced soon. But keep an eye out on our blog. Come to watch the show every once in a while. Watch the show every week.
Well, one of the things that the product manager of AppScript, who we know very well, is always mentioning is that he loves use cases, right? Whenever someone says, I want something, he will always ask himself, well, why? Like, what does that do? What does that open up? What does that allow that you can't do today, right? So whenever you have a request, if you want to know, oh, what about this feature? What about that? Give us more background. Let us know how that could open up new possibilities, or that there's a key script your company needs that could help you with. And that'll really help us get the context we need to decide how to build the feature, how important it is, and those kind of activities.
One thing that for instance, that comes to my mind, and people have definitely come to me with this question is, well, a lot of companies do things. They have what's called a workflow. So like you want to work on something, and I have to approve it because I don't trust you. I'm kidding. We do have a code review process here at Google. So whenever we write code, it has to be approved by at least one more person before it can be pushed out. And this is true of documentation too. So we understand this use case. So one thing that a lot of people want to do is they might want to have a Google Doc. And when you write a doc, you might want to send it for approval. Well, right now, how would you do this? Well, you'd probably copy paste the URL, put it in an email. I don't want to say it's clunky. I mean, this is what probably 100% of people are doing this right now. Right? Or you do share or something, and there's not a lot you could do. Now, wouldn't it be really cool if you had a menu that said send for approval, check approval status, there's a little UI that tells you, what's going on. Then, your manager's manager or whoever's reviewing has a dashboard of all the approval statuses. I mean, this is what we talk about when we say, what's your use case? Like, what problem are you trying to solve? You let us know, and we will figure out how to make this work for you. If it's legitimate, like, no.
We want to give you the tools you need to do useful things. That's why we're here, right? So
exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think this falls in that category, and we're going to continue to look at it, but we don't have any roadmap to announce. Or
Yeah. So does anyone on the live show want to say anything? Want to say hi, or do you guys have any questions? Hold on. We've got to turn your audio
You
up.
check the chat?
Oh, here we go.
The chat. We need to check the
You
chat.
check the chat?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have the chat loaded up on our laptops in front of us.
Maybe we're going to find a way to disable that chat because...
Well, some people like the chat, though. We probably should just join.
It's too many options,
Could you read us what's in the chat?
Yeah. Hold on. I can't hear you right now. Sorry. Oh, I think you're muted.
The reason I don't talk much is my mic is crappy.
Your mic sounds fine to me.
Okay. When they're talking about the deep integration with Word,
Right.
2 weeks ago we talked about that for forms as well. So let me just bring it up again, that would be super.
Gotcha.
Forms, you mean
Because,
Google
for
Groups?
example, when
think
you
forms,
send out
right?
the form,
Forms, I see.
yeah. So when I send out the form and it's going to 40 different people, it would be nice to be able to check the spreadsheet and tell them 20 have already responded. Or to send out the form and say, okay, your particular form has to deal with apples, and so at the top we have some information about apples. And for another person, their query on the form has to do with bananas, so I'd like to go to the spreadsheet and put my bananas information at the top of that. So the forms would be somewhat customized for each person to whom they're sent.
I see.
That's interesting, yeah.
That's interesting.
I do remember about forms coming up in the past. And I think one of the issues there is that the way the form is built today, it just doesn't have any plugs, right? There's no dynamic stuff that happens. It's kind of you just get the form, you fill it out. So I think our answer in the past, and you've probably heard from us before, has been you can build your own forms like UI apps, text boxes, labels, submit buttons, forms, data storage. Obviously, you don't want to build it all from scratch, but the ability's there. And I think it's interesting to kind of maybe define what are some points we can plug into forms that are simple and would open up a lot of possibilities without having to kind of make all of forms turn into all of UI app, right? Where everything is reconfigurable. If there's some sort of middle ground we could find, that may be useful to look at.
Yeah, I mean, it's also tough because I can also see, why you would want that ability. Because on the one hand, anyone who's a developer can easily put together a form that, with the information they want. But now you want to roll this out to your non-developers and give them a tool that's as easy to use as Google Spreadsheets forms, where you could. It's not exactly drag and drop, but it's kind of like click and type.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. It's easy to use, easy to set up. But I don't know. I wonder, does it get too complex at some point? I mean, Forms already has some branching functionality.
Yeah, there's if you answer this question, then go to this page or skip that page.
But I've always found, and this is just the way my brain works, which is visual programming is very hard. Defining logic like that. Like for instance. There's that Android project that's owned by MIT that lets you program Android apps. I like, putting puzzles together.
Yeah.
And I was doing this, I'm going, this is harder than actually programming. It didn't make any sense.
As a programmer, I guess. It's harder,
yeah. But I can see but there's a point where it does get too complex.
Well, thanks for the feedback, though. But I think we couldn't just turn on complete manipulation of everything dynamically based on. I think that could be a bit challenging to even enable if we wanted to, if we made that a full-time.
What is cool is that Spreadsheets does have a get form URL, API call. So depending on what it is people need to do, there could be multiple spreadsheets, emailing different links depending on the user. But there are limitations with that solution as well.
Yeah.
But there are ways of kind of creating this sort of thing with AppScript. So, John, was there anything else in chat? I'm asking because we have about a minute left.
Nope, that's it. Thanks, guys.
No problem. I saw your comment, when are we going to have a hackathon in Washington, D.C.? I got to give you the nothing to announce. But we are thinking about doing some stuff in New York City. So hopefully that's not too far.
It's just an Acelo right
No, that's great.
Yeah, so we'll see what we can do. Because these are very popular. And I wanted to do one in New York City, but everyone was like, oh, we always do them in New York City. But it was 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
A year ago, 2 years ago? I mean, I think we're due.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, we got a good office here.
You can do it in my living room, and I'll buy the pizza. And
He'll eat a whole pie, though. I don't know if that's sustainable.
I'm very jealous.
Diet
You
Coke.
could fit 60 people in your living room. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll just stay tuned and watch the blog, and we'll definitely post if we have more external events.
Super. Thanks, guys.
No problem. So I think that's about it.
That does it for today.
That does it for today. So, I totally forgot to plug something that's happening next week, and I should have done this at the beginning.
Go for it.
Which is next Thursday, we're having a very special show, which is we're going to be talking about using Google Analytics with AppScript. I'm going to be back at the mothership in Mountain View to take care of a couple things. But when I'm on the West Coast, I've roped in one of my friends who's on the Google Analytics team. He wrote a very popular blog post about using Google Analytics with Google AppScript, and we're gonna have a show.
That's so perfect.
Talk about doing that stuff, and we are also going to have office hours. It's going to take place next Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, whereas the other show, the analytics show, is Thursday at I believe it's 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. So if time zones are confusing you right now, go to developers.google.com/live and just look for the event. It's called Making Sense of Your Analytics or something. Anyway, it's next Thursday. Just look for it. There's a couple of shows going on that day.
Great. It's exciting.
Okay, and I'm excited to try doing this show from a different studio. I'm curious, like New York City, West Coast, like what the differences are there.
East Coast, West Coast.
East Coast, West Coast.
All right, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us, and if you're not joining us live, thank you guys for watching this whole thing. We try to keep it fun for you guys. Until next time, I'm Ikai Land.
And I'm Eric Lita.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.